Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I'm excited to introduce to you Mickie Kennedy, and let me share with you a little bit about Mickie. He is an expert in helping small businesses, authors, and startups increase their visibility and credibility through Tier 1 press release distribution. Mickie founded eReleases over 25 years ago after realizing that small businesses desperately need a press release service they can actually afford, giving them access to the media and to national newswire, all with the personal touch. Mickie lives in Baltimore County with his family and two feuding cats, and enjoys British science fiction and acknowledges an unhealthy addiction to diet soda. Mickie holds an MFA in creative writing with an emphasis on poetry from Georgia Mason University. Georgia Mason. I'm thinking my local cities around here. So Georgia Mason University. And he still writes poetry most Monday nights virtually with a group of fellow misfits. Today, we're going to talk about scaling to multiple seven figures with a low ticket offer. A lot of times we talk about high ticket offers, but today we're going to talk about how we can do that scaling to seven figures with a low ticket offer. So please join me in welcoming my guest today, Mickie Kennedy. Mickie, so nice to have you on.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So we always start out with two easy questions. The first one always is just tell everybody, where do you live? Where do you call home? I kind of gave some of it away, but maybe it'd be a little more specific. Huh?
So I live in a suburb of Baltimore, a little closer to a rural area, big, large lots, and but it's about 20 minutes or so to the city, so it's a nice sort of compromise. And I've been living here for, I guess, a little over 25 years, originally from North Carolina, and then moved up to the DC area for grad school, and then didn't like the traffic of DC, so I felt Baltimore might be a good compromise.
Very true. My brother lives in Fredericksburg, Maryland, and he works in DC, and he does deal with the traffic. But very cool. And the second is, we shared a little bit about where you are today and some of the accomplishments you've made. And I always like, though, to dig a little bit deeper and delve into, really what got you to where you are today, that really was that, okay, I've got to do this. This is my calling.
Well, when I left graduate school, I had been studying poetry, so my career plan was pretty much write poetry and maybe wait tables. And so I did that for a summer after graduating and realized that, my feet hurt, my back hurt, and I just felt so psychologically drained at the end of my shifts. I wasn't reading or writing. So I decided to transition to an office job and got hired at a telecom research startup as employee number 3, and that was in DC. And one of the things that they wanted me to do, since I had a background in writing, was to write press releases and send them out. And so I did that. We published a lot of data. and I didn't have much luck. And then I realized that, looking at what journalists were writing, the articles, they were sort of following a story arc, and I was just giving them data, and I wasn't really telling the seeds of what could be a story, or even the framework of a story. So I went back and looked at our data. We had just published a press release about telecom traffic to and from the United States to various Caribbean countries, and I went back to that and noticed that like one country was much bigger inbound and outbound traffic to the United States, and explored that and realized that it was because that country was the hub for 1-900 numbers
Mm,
during that time, which was pretty popular, I think, in the early 90s.
mm.
So you'd call, get a psychic for a
Yeah,
dollar a
one
minute,
900.
or
Mm-hmm.
you would get, pet advice or romance advice, all kinds of things like that. And I suspect that the traffic was rerouted through that country, but I imagine some people were actually there providing the information. But I published that press release, sent it out, and immediately we got picked up by the Financial Times, The Economist, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and 3 telecom trade publications. And so I was like, wow, that is very different than what I'd done before. And I continued to do releases that focused on the story, and we continued to get pickup. We did one press release where we noticed that, going back and looking at the data, that often there was a bump in telecom traffic um, uh, several years, maybe 2 to 4 years, in an undeveloped country, often before there was double-digit economic
Mm,
growth. And all of a sudden, that spurred articles, and we got sales from our a new audience. Our
mm.
customer base before that had been, telecom attorneys, telecom companies, and telecom analysts. And all of a sudden, we started getting purchases by hedge funds, investment companies, and other people. So it really opened us up to a whole new customer base. And again, we were just killing it. And I just felt like, wow, this is so amazing. Uh, you know, I could do this for other businesses. And around the same time, I was then faxing. We started to get a lot more requests for journalists who would call and say, "Hey, in the future, could you email instead of faxing?" And I just thought, like, wow, that's so much easier. And my boss said, "Hey, there could be a business there." So I explored it. Spent about a year, mostly just reaching out to journalists on bulletin boards and places like that on the internet, which I don't think exists much anymore.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but uh, I launched in October of 1998 and had about almost 10,000 journalists in my database. And so I was just a matchmaker, sending people's announcements and press releases to these journalists, and had really good results. And over time, PR Newswire approached us. They're the oldest and largest newswire of press releases. And in the United States, it's a duopoly. It's PR Newswire and Business Wire. There are other players out there, but I would say, like, journalists basically fish in 2 oceans, and it's PR Newswire and Business Wire. There was a third company who tried to make inroads, and what happened over the last 10 years is journalists are expected to do more with less. And so used to, they'd write 2 or 3 articles a week, and now some are writing 2 or 3 articles a day. They don't have time to go to a third newswire. So as a result, that newswire is pivoted, and mostly it's just trying to meet disclosure requirements for financially publicly traded companies.
Hmm.
And a lot of them don't even care if journalists notice them, because they don't want journalists looking too closely at their
Yeah.
numbers and things like that. So in addition, there's a lot of other companies with wire in their names, but they're not really news wires that journalists are looking at. They're mostly into syndication, where the press
Mm.
release gets replicated on pages on websites that no one really looks at. It might be useful to put logos on your website, but you're not going to get new customers from it. If you even go to these websites and do a search for your company name, knowing that you're on that syndicated section, you're not going to show up. Usually these are subdomains and other things. And I always tell people, this is a distraction. You're really looking with PR, you're looking for earned media. And that's where a
Mm.
journalist actually writes about you. You're actually in the publication. So, paying to be on basically the equivalent of a blog on Forbes, but you're never in the print publication is not a goal. We're
Mm,
looking for the article in Forbes that does get published in print
mm,
and things like that. So it is more difficult, but the rewards are much greater, and you can actually get customers from it. And when you do get that media coverage, you take that link and you share it with your leads, and it improves your conversion rate. You share it with your
mm,
customers, it reduces churn. When someone sees an article, it really acts as like a big credibility boost.
mm,
It's like almost like an implied endorsement or social proof when a journalist writes about you, and it really does help you quite a bit. And the customers you generally get from earned media are generally less likely to shop for a discount, and they generally have a higher lifetime value because they have a more of an emotional response to your business. And when they found you, they just wanted to do business with you. They
yeah.
had this connection.
Get that with them too, fear of missing out on something.
Right.
So a lot of times people I think forget about press releases, and so explain to the folks that may have never done a press release in their life, what are they and exactly how do they work?
Right. So a press release is basically just an announcement to the media. They're usually 400 to 600 words. They're usually written in the third person, though you might have a quote in there where you can certainly talk in the first person. It's basically the information for a journalist to write an article. It's not the article itself. It is, the what you feel is the most important thing that you're trying to announce. What is the newsworthy announcement that you're trying to do? And one of the biggest criticisms of press releases is that they don't work. And I would agree that 97% of press releases that go out probably do not generate earned media. And, for that reason, I have spent my energy and time over the past many years looking at the releases, the 3% that do get picked up. And
Yeah.
there are lots of patterns there. What I don't see in those 3% are personnel changes, with the exception of maybe a new CEO or executive or an industry veteran. And so outside of that, if you've got a new assistant HR person who came on board, maybe you just send that photo and a couple of sentences to your local paper or a trade publication that has an on the move section, because that's probably all you're going to generate. And don't spend
Mm,
your money going over the wire. Um, there are, I mentioned these 3% of releases that are meaningful. Take a product announcement. Often, when I get those, they consist of this structure. We have a new product. Here's a list of features, and here's a page to learn more by. And for a journalist, and I'd already mentioned that they like to follow a story arc, there's not a lot of story there.
yeah.
And so one of the things that you can do that would immediately improve its chances of getting picked up by probably a factor of 20 is incorporate a use case study. Someone who beta tested the product.
Yeah.
What was their problem going into it, and what was their outcome? Ideally, if you have some numbers, that's even better. Have a
Mhm.
quote by them talking about the experience of using the product. That allows a journalist to create more of a story arc. So, hey, here's a new product. Here's a company that used it. This was their results. Here's some features, and then where to learn more about that product. That fulfills more of what a journalist is looking for. I think that many people. They are kind of selfish when it comes to writing their press release. They know what they want to announce, and they know what their goal is. They want to sell more. But they're not really looking at it from the framework of the journalist. The journalist is a gatekeeper. They have to decide, is this information that if I turn into an article is going to either entertain or educate, or ideally both for their audience. And so you have to sort of maybe reverse engineer your announcement to fulfill what they're looking for. And so, the use case study is one. Another thing to incorporate is data. it doesn't have to be your data. You could,
Mm.
let's say you have a logistics software solution, that saves transportation companies money. You could say, hey, 60, find a number out there and say, hey, 63% of new transportation companies fell in the first 5 years, often because they aren't profitable. And our solution helps companies become profitable. And then
Mhm.
I mentioned a use case study. Company X was losing 7% a year. They incorporated our software solution. And at the end of 90 days, they were showing a 3% net profit. And then an amazing quote by them. That's really great information that a journalist can use. The percentage of people that fail in the first 5 years shows the stakes of why your solution is important, and really drives home the importance of it. And as a result, they know that their audience is going to be more receptive to it. So look for those types of opportunities, and other strategick types of releases that are very meaningful is um, you know uh, years ago someone coined the phrase newsjacking, and it's like when there's a big trend in your industry, join it. And that worked for about 10 minutes. If you looked at the Target credit card breach, every security consultancy released a press release about it. And when I looked on the wire with one of my clients, I counted over 1,400 press releases in a 30-day period about the credit card breach, and they were all saying the same thing.
Mhm.
Let's solve this for you. And I feel that a really good viewpoint when everybody's going one direction is for you to go the opposite. So is there a contrarian viewpoint that you could take on the subject
Hmm.
that's trending? And the importance of a contrarian viewpoint is journalists like to be fair and balanced. And if no one else is raising their hand and being the contrarian, you stand the chance that every article that gets published on this, you get plugged in there. And
Yeah.
where if you were just joining the fray and you were successful, you might get one article where you
Mhm.
you are just one of many people out there
Yeah.
saying the same thing. So a contrarian viewpoint can go a long way, as long as you don't alienate your customer base by taking a position. So you got to make sure it's a position that you can defend, and it doesn't make you come across as being like a little crazy or anything like that. But there are very rational ways to be a contrarian. Everybody is trending towards going green. Electric cars have been pushed by, government and many people talking about how great it is for the environment. But if you were a contrarian, you could very rationally say, hey, I think that we shouldn't embrace electric cars right now. We haven't solved the environmental crisis of how we get these out of the earth, the minerals to make these batteries, as well as the labor issues. A lot of children are going into these mines, according to some people. And
Mm.
then also you can talk about, we don't know what we're creating at the end of the life of these cars. Are we a bigger problem with all these batteries that are going to end up either in the landfill or elsewhere? And also, there's the problem of these batteries in accidents catching on fire and requiring 20, 30, 40,000 gallons of water to put them out. That doesn't sound very environmental. And that's a way to be rational and logical, and probably won't, alienate you from people. But it does make it very
Get them
likely that when
thinking.
people talk about the issue, they'll plug you in.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you gave us some great tips for winning press releases. Why do so many of them fail though? Or, you know.
Yeah, I think it goes back to not understanding the journalist's need to create a story arc, and you
Mhm.
sort of approaching it as in I want this, that, I've written this from, what I want out of it. And I think that sometimes you have to sort of step back and put the focus maybe on the issue around your business, and your business is just a player, an example in the
Mhm.
press release. And so I think that that's one of the reasons that so many press releases fail. And another reason is they're just not strategic. I mentioned,
Mhm.
these strategic types of releases. I have a complete free masterclass about creating strategic releases, and goes through examples of ones that work. and it's completely free. It's less than an hour video commitment. I realized that, the last
Mhm.
class I bought, I never completed because it was 24 hours of videos. And so I made this very accessible. And if anyone's interested, it's at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN. It's a good place for someone who knows nothing about PR to start, because you'll be looking at examples of strategic types of releases that are the 3% that generally do create earned media. So if you do a PR campaign, and that's what I always tell people, when they say, should I do a press release? I'll say, no, you should do a PR campaign, because it's like, you wouldn't judge Google based on, 20 clicks to your website, whether they work for paid advertising. You can't really do one press release and judge whether PR is going to work for you. You really have to do a campaign of 6 to 8 different types of releases, where you've tested several different strategic approaches that are different and unique about your company. And, being a small business, it might take you a year to a year and a half to do those 6 to 8 releases. It's not something that I think the average person, unless they're really doing a lot of newsworthy things, can really do in a very short period of time. But that being said, I've had businesses that do them like one a month. So it
Oh,
is
wow.
possible to do it at an accelerated rate. But I do think that, find the cadence that works for you and your business, but give it a try and test that out. And again, that masterclass is at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN, and completely free. Another strategic type of release that I tell people never fails. I've never had anybody that I've coached to do it and not generate earned media, is to do an industry survey. Um, you know, uh, Pick meaningful questions that are timely, that people would want to know right now. Like if you were at a trade show or a conference, what are the things you'd ask other businesses, that are in your space? Like, those could possibly be questions you could ask in a survey. Pick 12 to 16 of those questions. I like SurveyMonkey mostly because of the way it analyzes the data, makes it very easy at the end.
Mhm.
But you can do 4 questions per page, so 3 to 4 pages. If someone stops halfway, you've got half their responses. Take that link, and then you don't have to know a few hundred people in your industry. Most people don't. You then take that link and share it with a small or independent trade association that represents either your industry
Mhm.
or a section of your industry that you identify with and would be a good fit for you. And people don't realize there are so many of these trade associations. Everyone knows the big ones, and stay away from them. They don't need media attention, and they're not going to cooperate with you. But the smaller ones might have as few as, I think the good candidates probably have as few as like 600 members, but a lot of them have a little over 1,000, sometimes a little bit bigger. Just approach them and say, hey, could you take this link and share it with your members? I'm looking to get at least 100 responses for a survey I'm doing on the industry, on this industry. And I would love to include you in a press release I'll be issuing over PR Newswire in the near future. So a lot of these places, people don't know about it. They don't get media attention. So often they see this as a win-win for them to get
Yeah.
some exposure as well. And, probably more than 2/3 of the first people that we reach out to says yes. And so it's a very easy ask for them. And you have vetted it saying that you're looking for at least 100 responses. So if you don't get 100 responses, I then circle back to them and say, hey, I hate for you to lose this opportunity. Is there any way you could push the survey out again to the members, maybe also with social media or email if they didn't do that
Mhm.
before? And they'll want it to succeed, so that they will try to send it out again. You then analyze the results, figure out what was the biggest aha moment. What is the one question here that would really surprise your industry, or that your industry would love to know the answer to? And, there's questions you could be asking,
Mhm.
about work culture post-pandemic, people not wanting to come back into the office. There's a
Mhm.
lot of concerns about AI in a lot of industries. You could ask questions around that. But there's also specific questions that are trending in your industry that you could ask. Be creative, ask people that ask people on LinkedIn what would be a really good question for people would want to know the answer to in our industry. You'd be surprised how other people people who follow you could crowdsource really great questions. And that's the most important part, is asking the right questions and then picking the one to focus on. You're going to write the press release about that one question, and you're going to provide an amazing quote where you provide the analysis of why you felt the numbers skewed that way. Maybe I mentioned AI. Maybe 67% felt like they believe in the next 5 years their job could be eliminated by AI. And you could say something like, "Hey, I believe that this might be an alarmist reaction. I seriously doubt that 2/3 of people's jobs are at risk, but I
Right.
do believe
Right.
that maybe in 5 years, those people who don't see how AI could assist them may be at a serious disadvantage
Yeah.
career wise." And so it's a way to be rational. It sounds really great and logical. And then, you send that release out. You mentioned that the survey was of the members of that trade association. And every time I've coached someone through this, they generally get between 8 and 14 articles,
Mm.
individual articles, by people who cover their industry. The least we've ever gotten is 4. And so
Yeah.
this is a
Wow.
really great way to really stand out. And by doing a survey, it elevates you and makes you seem like an industry expert.
Hmm.
Even when you may not feel like you are, it really does give you a great platform. So that's another great way to stand out.
Yeah.
It seems like a big ask, but the way I've broken it down, it's as easy as that. It's very accessible, and most people are capable of doing this.
So really that kind of, I think, falls into my next question, which was free local media coverage. How else can they get that free local media?
So when it comes to local media, you don't need to pay a service like eReleases. You really are capable of doing this yourself. So if you think about it and break it down, there's probably less than 10 people in your local uh, area that would cover you. And it's just a matter of building a Rolodex of 10 people at most.
Hmm.
For some people, it might be as few as 4 or 5 people. So you're going to look at your local paper and figure out, when people do cover your industry, who, who is that journalist? And you're going to then get their email address. If it's not online, call and ask. These are not celebrities. These are members of your community, and they should be accessible. So you're not imposing or being
Hmm.
unusual for asking for their email address. You call and ask for it. They may just redirect you over the phone directly to that journalist and ask for it. And they might just put you on the spot and say, "Well, pitch me right now over the phone." And I always
Hmm.
push back and say, I'm a shy English major type. I clam up on the phone, and I would love to put this together in a very short pitch and email it to you. And eventually, you'll get the email address. But it's usually, again, more than 2/3 of the people will just give you the email address, and
Yeah.
it's as easy as that. You're then going to look, and is there a business paper or magazine in your area? In the Baltimore area, we're lucky enough to have a really good Baltimore Business Journal. And then you're going to look, are you in the consumer market or more B2B? If you're in the consumer market, you might look also, do you have a magazine or a consumer magazine or something like that? We have Baltimore Magazine. DC has, like, I think, Washingtonian, and it tends to be a little more upscale publications in both markets. You're going to then look at other opportunities that exist in the space. Are there other magazines? TV and radio? Are there sometimes segments that put the spotlight on businesses in your space? If so, contact them and ask for the producer or booker's email address who did that segment. If it's on the local news and you see every once in a while they do a health spotlight, and they bring people in for talking about massage or chiropractic, and you're in that space, maybe you're a dentist and you have a really cool idea of something that would look really cool visually on TV. Again, call, get that email address, put together a good little pitch, and that's it. Once you have your Rolodex, you're not writing a press release for these people. You're just emailing them with 2 or 3 sentences, maybe 4, of a pitch. Like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I've noticed a trend of people talking about, going green and being very environmental. And as a local dry cleaner, I would love to share with you all of the great things that we are doing to make sure that we're not impacting the environment in a bad way. And I would love to to talk with you more about this. I then suggest that we put an amazing quote in there. And when I say amazing quote, it could be how creative you were when you talked. Some people with elevated, beautiful writing, but for a lot of people, it's just being very concise and powerful. You paraphrased it very well and said it very succinctly, that if a journalist was to reword it, it wouldn't sound as good. And you want there to be a pain or an ache if they remove your quote. And so having a great quote in a press release or in a pitch, a journalist can envision a whole article around that. So I do suggest that you have a few sentences of a pitch and then put an amazing quote in there. And then you send that to them. And for a lot of people, I recommend to do this at a minimum quarterly. For small businesses, it sometimes can be difficult to come up with ideas, but just be creative, brainstorm, think about things, look at other people in other markets. I have some people who are like, hey, I'm in a space, I mentioned dry cleaning, go and type in to Google Alerts, dry cleaning Chicago. And every time an article appears in Chicago markets, look at that and say, could I be an example of that for my local market? You don't tell your local market, hey, this article got written about a Chicago dry cleaner. We should do the same here. What you do is say, hey, I've noticed that a lot of people are talking about this issue, and I feel I would be a great example of that in the local community and would like to share more with you. And so that's sort of how you would do it. But, put these together. I say do it as often as you have ideas that are distinct and newsworthy. But at a minimum, try to do it at least quarterly. And what you'll find is you may go a year with nothing and you feel like it's a bust. But then all of a sudden you do it another one and then it gets picked up. Or you have it where they pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, I've seen you pitch me a few times. It was never a good fit, but I'm working on an article now, and I was thinking of plugging in a local business, and I thought of you. And then they're going to say, the article is about this. Does that apply to you? Try to find a way creatively that it does, and then try to give them a really great quote. Again, if it's just over the phone, say, hey, I could probably put together a really great quote or a couple of options for you. Could I email that over to you? And what's your direct line so I can call and make sure you've got everything that you need? And so that's a great way to do it. And local media is really easy to get. It does take a little bit of work making those connections, establishing that relationship. But generally, after you've done it for a year, your second year is going to be way more successful. And after a while of doing this, maybe 3 or 4 years, you'll find that you only have to send out a pitch once or twice a year. But at the same time, several people are approaching you throughout the year to plug you in. And in the Baltimore market, I see the same company 3 or 4 times a year. And I saw them at a EO Entrepreneurs Organization event and asked them, how do you get in the media so often? And they said, to be honest, I asked them, are you advertising? And they said, no, I've never spent $1 in advertising in the Baltimore Sun, but I reached out to them. I pitch them regularly. And every time that they're looking for a business to plug in, they call and I drop everything. If it's about HR or work culture, I bring my director of HR in and we are immediately available to them. We give them amazing quotes and we'll get photos for them. We'll do everything we can and we just drop everything and we're great for them. And as a result, we get picked up 3 or 4 times a year without active pitching anymore. And that could happen for anybody by just doing the legwork and establishing those relationships.
So as our title is the scaling multiple 7 figures with a low ticket offer, how are you explaining to them how all of the things you've talked about so far can get them to that 7-figure number?
So I'm the business that's reached 7 figures,
7 figures, right?
by offering a low ticket item, and by low ticket, it's spending for new customers and regular customers who come in through promotions. It's an average of $300 or $400, which I consider low ticket in the space of PR. And what I do is I try to give them ideas for how to do that next press release. We send customized ideas based on their business. We reach out to them, constantly educating them that one press release isn't a PR campaign, and we try to help them to stay on track to do regular press releases. We are high touch. For someone who spends small amounts of dollars, we do invest a lot of time and energy with them, especially with onboarding to educate them about everything, letting them know about our that master class that I have, and it is about really just taking the time to really invest in people when they come on board, and regularly staying in touch with them. And I think that a lot of people, when it comes to low ticket offers, just think about bringing them on board and then trying to pitch something much greater to them. We do have a promotion where twice a year we try to sell packages of releases, and they are very successful. And of course, they're much more pricier than $350 because people are buying packages of 5 or 10 or even 25 releases. And I think that one of the things that you have to do, especially being an online business, is invest in establishing a relationship, and not trying to sell them so much as to educate them.
Yeah,
And it makes that investment, that they're going to use you more and more and increase that lifetime value.
that is so true. Gosh, you've given so many great tips for the folks today. I know that they're going to want to connect with you. So I am going to share my screen. If you are listening, you know the drill. You should grab a paper and pencil. I will give for those that are listening, the website is eReleases.com. That's eReleases.com. On Facebook, it is eReleases.press.release.distribution. On Twitter or X, it is eReleases, as well as LinkedIn is publicity. Again, LinkedIn is publicity. Instagram is eReleases PR. YouTube is eReleases, as well as Pinterest is eReleases. I'm going to turn it over to Mickie to talk to you again about his masterclass and what you might find if you go to eReleases.com or any of the social media that he particularly spends the most time in. So, Mickie, it's all yours.
Sure. So, if you visit the website eReleases.com, you can feel free to chat, email, or call us between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll only speak to an editor. We have no salespeople. There's no quotas or commissions, and we're pretty honest if we feel like we're a good fit. If you have an idea for a release, or you've written a release and you just want feedback, feel free to email it to us. Allow a couple of business days to get back to you, and we'll do that whether you're a customer or not. It's just one of the things where we help small businesses and people, try to do better press releases. And in addition to that, at the footer of our website, all my social media is there, so we make it easy to click through and find us. And there's a link there as well for a new customer special in the footer. And also, that masterclass is at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN. And again, it's a small commitment of less than an hour video, but it will really give you actionable types of releases that are way more successful. It's the 3% that do get picked up. And if you build a campaign of 6 to 8 releases, you should at least see 2 or 3 of those releases get earned media, especially if you do the survey one. And you'll be shocked at how meaningful earned media can be for your business.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is a huge influx of leads or sales, but also each media pickup that you get helps when you share it with your social media, with your leads, with your customers. It really does make a meaningful difference, and it's just a great way to stand out.
Awesome. And say there's somebody out there in the audience and they say, you gave so many great things, but I don't want to do this myself. Can they use you as your company to do the stuff for them? Do you build relationships to do
We
that?
do offer basic writing, where you have us write what you want us to focus on. If you're looking for more strategy and developing a PR campaign for you, we do offer that. Just contact us and say, I'm looking for something a little bit more strategic than this writing, like maybe putting together a PR campaign that Mickie's involved in. It is a higher price point, but again, it's much cheaper than working with a PR firm. And again, we do have really good results because we do strategic types of releases. So you're much more likely to get earned media than the average PR firm. I am shocked at the number of people who've spent $20,000 to $40,000 with a PR firm and got almost no media pickup. And I'm just saying to myself, you could have just done a survey and you would have gotten, probably 8 to 14 media pickups. And I just am shocked at the number of PR firms that don't do strategic releases and build out things like a survey for their clients. And that is something that we're willing to do as part of a overall strategic PR campaign. But it is a little bit higher price point, but it's not even $10,000. It's substantially cheaper, and it is a full proper PR campaign.
Awesome. Well, Mickie, you are just a wealth of information on everything there is to know about PR and press releases. And I thank you so much for being such a great guest today.
Well, you're very welcome. It's a real joy to be here.
Awesome. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.